Well, good morning, everybody, and happy, snowy, cold New Year to everyone. For the last 6 months of 2021, we were practicing in our temple, and now because of the weather, we find ourselves starting off 2022 exactly the same way that we started off 2021 in our homes and coming together via Zoom. So, sort of like deja vu. And I'd like to thank Kurt because we kind of had to resurrect all this stuff to be able to do everything over Zoom. And this all happened just last night. So he kind of pulled everything together. So, and we had a little extended service this morning too. So it was kind of quite a bit for him to do last night. So I want to express our gratitude to him for doing all that. And then you probably noticed that we chanted for Edo-san in the health and well-being chant this morning. And we did that because on Friday morning, he tested positive for COVID-19 up at Ramanji Monastery where he's living now. So he's kind of separated himself from Shokin and quarantining himself there. And Shokin did a self-test too, and Shokin tested negative, so that was good. So we hope that Ado's symptoms remain mild and that he recovers quickly. Now, I mean, some of you might be thinking, as I am thinking, and Kurt is thinking too, what does this do to his ordination scheduled for next Sunday? And the answer to that right now is I don't know. The only way I knew about Ado's test results was we got an email from, well, Kurt and I are on Ramanji emails, so we got the information that way. I haven't actually talked to anybody, so at this point, it's still on. If it changes, we'll let everybody know as quickly as we can. But so that's kind of where that is right now. So, in Richard Rohr's teachings, he sometimes compares our consciousness with computer software. Just like a computer can only do what it's programmed to do, we respond to things based on our own personal programming. To change our responses, we need to change our software. So the beginning of a new year seems like an appropriate time to clean out and reset our personal software. The main thing that attracted me to Zen in the beginning of my practice was its simplicity. The primary practice of just sitting. Everything else will flow naturally out of this quiet, still sitting practice. When Richard Rohr first created his organization, which is called the Center for Action and Contemplation, he said he thought in the beginning its focus would be split 50-50 between action and contemplation. But after he got into it, he realized that more emphasis needed to be put on the contemplation part. That is what people lacked the most. He realized the cause and effect relationship between stillness and action. That the wisdom that is touched by being quiet and still is the root cause of not just any action, but skillful action. In our practice, the Buddha himself is our ultimate example. His skillful and compassionate teaching over the last 40 years of his life all bloomed out of his quiet meditation under the Bodhi tree, which he engaged in only at the end of his 6 years of being in the forest, after he had tried everything else. As Dogen reminds us, how can we ignore this example? So I suggest that the first overall attitude we adopt to reset our consciousness for 2022 is simply simplicity, appreciating the beauty, ease, and power in it, not only in our zazen, but also in everything that we do. Sticking with this attitude of simplicity, while now adding a little more to it, to our consciousness reset, I'd like to suggest a teaching that I know is familiar to some of you, and that is Kosho Uchiyama's Roshi's teaching of one zazen, two practices, and three minds. I've always liked this teaching, and I don't think you can get much simpler than 1, 2, 3. It's easy to remember. Yet within 1, 2, 3, we have everything we need. We have one zazen. The two practices are vow and repentance. And the three minds are magnanimous, parental, and joyful. In the sequence of resetting ourselves, we should start with the practice of repentance. In our service this morning, we added in the chanting of the repentance verse, the triple treasures, and the bodhisattva vows. Whenever these three chants are incorporated into a service or a ceremony, they always follow this sequence with the repentance verse chanted first. Two things are contained within repentance. First, we clean the slate of our past karma. It's similar to deleting old files, cookies, bookmarks, and browsing history on our computer. We let go of the old and open up space for the new. It sets the stage for a clean, fresh start. One particular thing I think we should look at carefully is, are we carrying any anger? Or the word I prefer to use these days instead of anger is animosity. And I'm not making that up myself. I've seen a number of translations where they use the word animosity in place of anger. So I looked the definitions of both these words up in the Webster's dictionary. And here's the definition of anger. A strong feeling of being upset or annoyed because of something wrong or bad. And then the second part of that is the feeling that makes someone want to hurt other people, to shout, etc. So I think the case can be made that the first part of this definition, a strong feeling of being upset or annoyed because of something wrong or bad, that to me in some places has its function, as in all things have their function. For example, in the case of injustice. However, I don't think the same thing can be said about the second half of that definition, where it says the feeling that makes someone want to hurt other people. The definition of animosity goes like this: a strong feeling of dislike or hatred, ill will or resentment tending toward active hostility, an antagonistic attitude. There's nothing in this definition that seems to me to have any place in our practice as bodhisattvas. In fact, this seems to be the complete opposite of loving kindness, which the definition of loving kindness that I like is gentle friendship raining down on everyone without exception, including yourself. So I'm just suggesting that we pay particular attention to any potential seeds of animosity within us, because Buddhist teachings are very explicit, very direct, and very numerous about the destructive quality of animosity. In general, they say that animosity destroys any accumulated good merit. So as we practice repentance and clearing the slate, if we identify any animosity within ourselves, even if it might be residing in there dormant, let's try and let that go. In addition to clearing the slate and opening up space, the second thing we do with the practice of repentance is we take responsibility for what we have done, how we have fallen short of fulfilling our vows. Shohaku Okamura says, repentance is a kind of awakening to the incompleteness of our practice of vow. He says repentance is deeply awakening to how much we are influenced by our ego consciousness. Within our one zazen, we can see how self-centered we are, how we distort things. When we see this, Shohaku says we are seeing with the true Dharma eye. After wiping the slate clean through the practice of repentance, the next thing we should do to reset ourselves is to reestablish our direction, our focus. We do this through the second practice of vow. As practicing bodhisattvas, we make 4 vows that give us the direction to stay on the Buddha way. Recalling them can also help calm and reorient us when daily life spins us around and we become confused, scattered, or our emotions overwhelm us. The vows, as we recite them, seem impossible to fulfill completely. That's why they are a lifelong practice, and that's why the practice of repentance goes along with the practice of vow. But for today, for the purpose of helping us get the new year off to a good start, let me suggest a few simple comments about each vow. The first one is, sentient beings are numberless. I vow to save them. So I have a refrigerator magnet that somebody gave me that says, just be kind. I've seen a bumper sticker that says, my religion is kindness. I think that's from the Dalai Lama. So that's pretty simple. Just being kind incorporates the 10 Bodhisattva precepts and covers the steps of right speech and right action on the Eightfold Path. You know, 2 of the precepts that we might want to pay particular attention to, because I think they might have a tendency to come up more frequently in our daily activities, are the precepts of not speaking of or even thinking of the faults of others, not judging them, and the precept of not praising ourselves, even if it's only internally to ourselves, at the expense of others. So sentient beings are numberless. I vow to save them, i.e., just be kind. The second vow is, desires are inexhaustible. I vow to put an end to them. My simple statement to help us with this vow is, don't let the roof leak. There's a verse in the Dhammapada that says, an unreflecting mind is a poor roof. Passion, like rain, floods the house. But if the roof is strong, there is shelter. An alternative simple statement for this vow could be, watch what you consume, and not just physically, but more important, mentally. This is practicing the precept of not taking in intoxicants. As Thich Nhat Hanh points out, harmful intoxicants these days can be found within many forms, such as advertising, TV shows, movies, games, social media, and news feeds and programs. One of the core teachings of Buddhism, which we don't seem to focus on much in our Zen tradition, is that of the chain of dependent origination. This is a 12-link chain that describes cause and effect relationships. The Buddha said, when this exists, that comes to be. With the arising of this, that arises. When this does not exist, that does not come to be. With the cessation of this, that ceases. Some of the links in the chain are a little difficult to understand, but 4 of them in the middle are easy to understand. And the sequence goes like this. When we have contact with something through our senses or through our mind, that gives rise to feelings, and feelings are generally categorized as either pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Those feelings then give rise to either craving or aversion, and then that craving or aversion gives rise to clinging or attachment. So we can work this in reverse. If we want to eliminate some kind of clinging or attachment, first thing we need to do is eliminate the craving. And if we want to eliminate the craving, we need to eliminate from the feelings from coming up in the first place. And to eliminate the feelings coming up in the first place, we can simply try to eliminate the contact. So this is an incredibly practical and down-to-earth teaching. There's nothing mysterious about it. And in my experience, it works. Now, I know there are times when contact with something or someone cannot be avoided. Those are times when it might be helpful to recall the phrase, "May I exist in muddy water with purity like a lotus." But when we can, these 4 links in the chain of dependent origination teach us that there is action we can take to protect ourselves from unwholesome influences, to keep our roof strong. So desires are inexhaustible. I vow to put an end to them, i.e., watch the roof. Try not to let it leak. The third vow is the dharmas are boundless. I vow to master them. The down-to-earth, practical, simple phrase I'll suggest for this vow comes from Dogen. Going forward in practice is a matter of everydayness. The great master Nagarjuna said, "It is a mistake to look for nirvana outside of samsara. It's all right here, right now, in our everydayness." This has always been a comforting teaching to me because my life seems to me to be extraordinarily uneventful, just plain ordinary. Kurt talked last week about gratitude and how mindfulness is a key practice in activating our sense of gratitude. Engaging with whatever we are doing, whoever we are with, or whatever we are experiencing with single-minded, wholehearted attention is mastering the dharma of that moment. It activates our sense of gratitude for the preciousness of this one transitory moment, the precious pearl of each moment, as a Zen story teaches. So the dharmas are boundless. I vow to master them, i.e., going forward in practice is a matter of everydayness. And the final vow, the Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to attain it. My simple phrase for this vow is, don't give up, just keep going. For as austere as Dogen can be at times, he always says that if you maintain determination, you will attain the way, no matter who you are or what your capacities are. To me, this is his most positive, encouraging, and inspirational message. Don't give up, just keep going. So, find time and space to sit periodically in quiet stillness. Clear the slate. Set your focus by, number 1, being kind. Number 2, don't let the roof leak, or in other words, watch what you consume. Number 3, going forward in practice is a matter of everydayness. Appreciate the preciousness of each moment. And number 4, don't give up. So this is my summary of 1 Zazen and 2 practices. Now for the 3 minds. Uchiyama Roshi says that these 3 minds manifest themselves out of our Zazen practice. The first is magnanimous mind. One metaphor for describing this mind is that of a mountain. A mountain can hold everything on its slopes, all the animals, trees, flowers, rocks, water, etc. Its peak touches the sky and the clouds. Its weather can be calm and warm, or cold and violent. The mountain can hold everything and experience everything, all without rejection. And through it all, the mountain does not move. The wind can easily uproot a failed tree, but the wind cannot overturn a mountain, says one of the lines in the Dhammapada. Another metaphor is that of the ocean. The ocean takes in the waters from all rivers without discrimination and absorbs them into its vastness. When no wind arises, there are no waves. It is calm. We should endeavor to make our minds like the mountain and the ocean. As one of our verses says, nothing surpasses the boundless mind. The second mind is the parental mind. This is a mind that nurtures, cultivates, inspires, illuminates, helps things and people grow. Shohaku Okamura says, it is a mind that cares for others. It is the bodhisattva spirit. He says a parent finds joy in taking care of children, whereas children can only find joy in being taken care of. That's the difference between parents and children. He says we are too often like children. We complain about things and of not being well taken care of. This childish mind is the opposite of parental mind. We should strive to turn this around and step up and take responsibility, ownership, and care of those things that have been appointed to us or where the opportunity presents itself. The third mind is joyful mind, and we can associate this with parental mind. There could be situations where we are called to be a parent, but maybe doing so is something we don't want to do, so we complain, maybe just internally to ourselves. We're trying to be a parent, but our childish mind is showing up. This is fertile ground for a practice of joyful mind. Shohaku says it's easy to have a joyful mind when things are going well, but it's most necessary when things are not going well. Doing our best to maintain a joyful mind helps us more easily endure hardships. I've also experienced in my life that being joyful and accepting uses a lot less energy than complaining or being miserable. So this concludes my suggestions on how to reset ourselves to start the new year. Simplicity, 1 Zazen, 2 practices, and 3 minds. Since most of this talk was simply a sharing of the teaching of Kosho Uchiyama Roshi, as translated and commented on by his student Shohaku Okamura Roshi, I'd like to end with a poem by Uchiyama Roshi that he composed towards the end of his life. And the poem is just titled, My Prayer. A higher, even more comfortable life, everyone is seeking only to inhale, exposing themselves to the crisis of suffocation, this 20th century age of the masses. I pray for the day when the ultimate wisdom may work in human beings, and that we may become aware that inhalation and exhalation are one breath. Life and death together form one life. That a completely new prototype of human being, vividly living out the true life force as it is, inclusive of life and death, glowing from the depth of life, may be upheld brightly for the people of the 21st century.